Okay.
So I'm doing my final major production, I'm doing a factual program, and I've decided to do it on post-traumatic stress disorder. Competition I'm entering my production into Raindance Film Festival. I chose this competition because it was the only film festival that was running at the time of my production, and it was the cheapest out there because most competitions make you pay about £200 to enter your production into, and I've seen other people's productions that I get into, and mine are nowhere near as good as theirs because they've got full production, they've got multiple cast and crew, and they've got a much bigger budget than I have. The film festival invites UK and international producers and filmmakers to publish their films to its 27th edition. That will take place from the 25th of September to the 6th of October in 2019 in central London, which is where the celebration is, and to release who's won. In my concept, I discuss what equipment I plan on using and interviews set up for each. To my equipment, I have a Canon EOS 77D with an 18 to 135mm lens, and I have a Rode microphone which would pick up everything the interview would be saying, so and then make sure the sound and the information they're giving is precise and you can hear it perfectly. Interview setup, I was going to be using the rule of thirds techniques. I will be talking about it later in more depth, but I'll be using the grid lines on my camera screen to set up each interview to make sure that the audience is being immersed into the interview so that they're gathering as much information as possible. Idea generation. The three ideas I had were Brexit, teenage driving, and post-traumatic stress disorder. My final idea is post-traumatic stress disorder, and the reason I chose this was because the focus group I conducted had a positive response to the idea of a documentary on post-traumatic stress disorder. And compared to the other surveys I did, everyone was saying PTSD and PTSD. Somebody actually said the Brexit, but because of the majority saying to do PTSD, I decided to choose that because I was kind of on edge of which one to pick. So I let my target audience decide what I should do, and they decided I should produce post-traumatic stress disorder. To create this documentary, I'll need to do a lot of intensive research that gives me a lot of facts and statistics so that I can give my viewer enough information to want to investigate more into the chosen topic of post-traumatic stress disorder. Because when you finish your factual program as a documentary maker, as long as the viewer wants to find out more information about that production, you know you've done a very good job. My proposal, I chose to create this documentary on post-traumatic stress disorder. I did this because my mother was in the military and she had experienced a lot of people that had post-traumatic stress disorder, and I felt it hit home quite a bit, and she was able to give me a lot of information on it, as well as first-hand primary research. To create this documentary, I was going to have to include a lot of intensive research to make sure that the information I was giving was exactly to the point, because of how sensitive the topic is, and it is very serious because of mental illness. If I give wrong information, it can offend somebody and it can make somebody upset. Topic research. What is PTSD? PTSD is an anxiety disorder caused by very stressful, frightening or distressing events. Someone with PTSD often relieves the traumatic event through nightmare and flashbacks and may experience feelings of isolation, irritability and guilt. PTSD is a disorder that some people develop after experiencing a shocking, scary or dangerous event. It is natural to feel afraid during and after a traumatic situation. This fear triggers many split-second changes in the body to respond to danger and help a person avoid danger in the future. This flight or fight response is a typical reaction meant to protect a person from harm. Nearly everyone will experience a range of reactions after trauma, yet most people will recover from those situations naturally. Those who continue to experience problems may be diagnosed with PTSD by a doctor. People who have PTSD may feel stressed or frightened even when they are no longer in danger. Shell shock. PTSD was commonly known as shell shock during the First and Second World War. The term shell shock was coined in 1917 by a medical officer called Charles Myers. It was also known as war neurosis, combat stress, or post-traumatic stress disorder, as we like to refer to it as today. Medical staff started to realise that there were deeper causes. Doctors soon found that many men suffering with symptoms of shell shock without having been in the front lines. By 1916, over 40% of casualties in fighting zones were victims of PTSD or shell shock. At the end of the war, over 80,000 cases of shell shock had passed through the British Army medical facilities. The main difference between the main difference between depression and post-traumatic stress disorder is who gets affected by it and how long it lasts. For example, PTSD lasts on average for 6 months, whereas depression lasts on average for 8 months. But the victim can be re-diagnosed multiple times with depression, whereas with PTSD you are unlikely to get diagnosed again. You are unlikely to get diagnosed with PTSD twice if you're fixed. So different people are affected in different ways. For example, people that get diagnosed with PTSD are most commonly retired soldiers that have seen war and death and have been on the front lines of the fight. Military personnel are the highest amount of people that get diagnosed. My target audience is 18 to 30, as I feel that people suffer from PTSD are mostly in this target audience, and also the people that want to research what post-traumatic stress disorder are in this target range. I chose this because I did a survey and a lot of people turned around and said that PTSD is mostly commonly found in that age range, and people that want to learn about it are in that age range because after you turn 18 you're a lot more mature and responsible, and you want to widen your knowledge on a lot of stuff in society. I made surveys to find out what type of things I'm going to have to include, so how many interviews, how I would set it up and information like that, and I also conducted a focus group to figure out the exact same amount of information I did in my survey, just so that I had an extra source of information for my primary research. Post-interventions, what I learned. So I learned that I wanted to do an expository documentary. I researched what all the type of genres are for the documentary. So you've got expository, reflective, there's many others, I can't remember all the names. But I decided to do expository as it gives plenty of information. The main overall outcome of an expository is to include lots of information, make sure that the viewer doesn't get bored, but you just spoon feed them so much information that they want to finish and go and research more for themselves and learn themselves, as well as including lots of interviews and first-hand experiences from a survivor. How I will implement this into my production. So I have in total 3 interviews. I have a sufferer, he's a cured sufferer of PTSD. I have a doctor and I have a psychologist. My chosen genre is expository. My survey responses show that 80% of people that did my genre survey said I should be doing expository. And this developed my idea because I was going to do a reflective documentary, because that helps you give plenty of information, but it also is a director-led. So you've got the presenter in there, so like Blue Planet, where you've got David Attenborough talking to you, whereas I'm going to be doing the voice of God. So I will be talking over and giving plenty of information while showing B-roll and archive footage. So obviously I'm not going to be able to film a war scene, so I'm going to have to get archive footage, even though I'm only allowed 10%. But I'm also going to be going out to Reading and filming time lapses of people and showing how you can't see PTSD because of how visible it is, and that it's just in common life. Video analysis. I analysed the documentary on Area 51 and found out how I was going to be setting up my interviews and what type of information I'm going to get. I also learned that in the background to blur out so that the focus is on the person. So in this one here, everything else is blurred out, and here's a survivor from Area 51. So he's in his home to make him feel comfortable, so when I conduct my interview on the person who has suffered from PTSD, he's going to be in his home, so he feels comfortable, so the information he gives is going to be more precise and he's going to be more relaxed, so he's going to want to give more information out because of how relaxed he is. When I interview a doctor, it's going to be in the office, so like this production I made at the end of last year, I had the interview held in her office, because she felt at home, so she's giving the information she's doing at work, she's going to be giving it to me, because it's kind of like, because I'm in my office, I'm in work mode. So when I interview the psychologist, because she's in her office, she's going to be in work mode, so she's going to be giving me the information on PTSD. I analysed a documentary on Margaret Thatcher up here, about locations, mise en scène, so don't just have just a white background, so have lots of other things in the background. So if, say for example, he's in an open room, so just have tables of flowers, have lots of colour, It worked in this one because it was in an office in Sirius, but in the documentary on Area 51, because he was at home, he felt relaxed, the information he was giving was better.
You've got 3 minutes left, I think.
Test shoots. I went into the studio, I analysed and I figured out how I was going to be setting up my interviews. So I'm going to be setting up the interview on the right, making sure that the grid lines of the rule of thirds is working perfectly in there. I'm also going to have my second camera on a zoomed in photo, and my third camera capturing hand movements, because for the survivor of PTSD, he might be feeling anxious, so if he's moving his hands it can show that he's nervous and what his emotions are, even though he might not be showing it physically, he'll be, like, the mentality of his hands will be shown. Narrative structure. What is narrative structure? Narrative structure defines how you're going to be setting up your production and what type of things you're going to be including. So for my production, I'm going to have it's going to be based on just like a film, so it's going to be beginning, middle, end. So beginning, it's going to start off with the doctor talking about what PTSD is. The middle is going to lots of B-roll and me talking over, explaining what PTSD and the history behind it. Then it's going to cut to the survivor and what his experience was, and he's going to tell us his story. And in the end, it's going to be the psychologist saying how we can help people, who you need to go to. Because then it's like, okay, now we've established what PTSD is, now we're going to establish how you can get help. So that's how I'm going to be structuring my documentary. Target audience requirements. My target audience is 18 to 30. They want to experience mature information. So what is PTSD, and how it's going to affect them in their life, and how they can help people around them. How I would reach my target audience is by making sure that the information I'm giving is very professional and mature, because if I'm talking like a child, or if I'm talking unprofessionally to the interviewers and in my voice of God, the information I'm giving won't be as positive and as impactful because you're not being professional. What information will I need to include? I need to talk about the history, what it is, who to help, different from other medical cases. How all of this has helped me? This has helped me because I didn't know anything about post-traumatic stress disorder before I came into researching this, and over the past 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks of researching PTSD, I now know having more than enough information to talk about it and how it's going to affect my production. I will include all of the information I've researched into my production, but just condense it and make sure I give precise and informative information. Interviewees, I have 3 interviews. So I've got Dr. Carl Waldman, I have Graham Bint and Marie Longworth. Graham actually lives in Australia, but he is a photographer and he has plenty of camera kit, so he's going to be setting up the interview for me, he's going to be conducting it like that, and I'm just going to be on the phone asking him and telling him what he needs to talk about. Any questions?
You guys got any?
Have you got any contingency plans in case they can't do whatever interviews?
I actually have contracts written up with them.
Okay.
So I will get them posted onto my website to just say, because all 3 of those people approached me. Most of them are from Marie and Carla from my mother's workplace at the NHS, and they said, oh, I heard your son's doing a documentary on PTSD, can I be of any help? I dropped them an email that night saying, can I have an interview? And they were like, yeah, sure, let's do it on, for Carla, it's on the 9th of April at 3 o'clock. One thing I did forget to talk about is problems I've faced. So a lot of problems I've faced is not related to my documentary. So my mother, we went skiing over February half term, and she tore a massive ligament in her knee, which has caused a lot of stress for us both. And recently she had a massive DVT in her leg, and I can't really explain it, but she had a massive blood clot in her leg, and it's caused her lungs to fill up with blood, a lot of blood, and caused her heart to work a lot harder. So her resting heart rate is 112 when it should be 62. So yeah, that's been quite a lot of stress. So I haven't been able to focus as much as I usually do for the past week and a half, but I have powered through and done to the best of my ability.
Have you had any problems setting up any of the interviews? So say the one that's in Australia, obviously that is an issue, and I know you've come up with with him filming it. How are you going to ensure that the way he sets it up still fits in with the rest of your documentary?
Well, I will send, because he will be the last person I interview, so I'm going to send him evidence of how to set up interviews, so how to use all of theirs. And because he is a photographer, he will know how to do that. So he's a professional photographer, he was a war photographer, so he knows how it should be filmed, and he's done lots of work before. I follow him on Facebook, and I'm in a Facebook group chat, Facebook group on Facebook, and he posts all the time PCSE documentaries and why it affects people and how it affects people. So I feel very confident interviewing him, and he will probably be the best person to speak to.
News? Cheers, Sam.